We are heading for Game Jam, organized by Chandigarh University for the first time. So this was our first Game Jam that we ever participated in, and everything about this Game Jam was a new experience for us. Like, we never done this before. So we began with the topic. The topic of the Game Jam was Arena, and we wrote everything that came to our mind about Arena. So we spent some time thinking about the idea about what we can develop around the theme of Arena, and every time we were thinking about Arena, it was coming to our mind that it should be something about champions and gladiators and the battlefield of the old times. So we decided to do something around that only. So my brother started working on the visual aspect of the game, that how the overall game is going to look like and how the level is going to look like. While he was creating the concepts for the game, I started building a rough level using placeholders for the game. And if you have ever done a game jam before, you know that time is the most valuable asset on your side. So instead of writing the whole script again, I just used the player controller from another project that we were working on. I modified the script so both the players can use the same script for the controls. I created an array of type string and stored all the required input in it, and from there I'm going to call the required controller input for any specific function, like for shoot or anything like that. And then there was an error until there wasn't. So from there I started creating all the inputs required in the input manager, and one by one I added all the required controls for both the players and assigned the values to those inputs. It is very important to make sure that the values and naming of the input is correct, otherwise it won't work and you will just get frustrated that why is it not working. The basic idea of the game is that there is relic in this game, and whichever player destroys the relic first will win the match. But the catch of the game is that both the players can lose the match but only one can win. So what will happen is that during the middle of the game, a champion of the arena will spawn, and the only way to kill him is if players work together as a team. If either one of them is killed by the champion, then both the players are going to lose the match. I started coding this advanced jump where if you press the jump key longer, then the character will jump higher, and quite frankly I wasted quite a lot of time trying to make it work. At a point it was very frustrating because it was not working. So the character started to fly instead of jumping. So I discarded this code and used the simple code to make the jump work for the time, and apparently it worked like a charm. Next up, it was time to give the characters the power of bazooka so that they can shoot. So I started off by creating a fairly simple bullet by just using a circular sprite, and I attached a short point for the bullets to spawn with the character and made it a child of the character parent. And for the shoot button, I referred it to the third element of the input array that we created before and created the changes in the input manager. Also, I created this field to know which bullet has been shot by which player. And I made a slight mistake. I used wrong condition to make the code work, and the solution was fairly simple. You just had to make the use of right condition. And I forgot to add rigid body 2D component to the bullet, so Unity threw an error to me, and Unity was like, I won't let you do this, developer, this is against the rules. So I quickly changed the gravity scale of the bullets, and the bullets were just working fine, like okay, I know that was not the best sound effect for the bullets, but there was still slight issue with the shooting mechanics. The bullets were being spawned from the wrong direction, and the solution was easy. If only I replaced this section of the code with this code, and it should have worked, but I didn't realize it back then, so I spent quite some time trying to make it work. Anyways, this is the lever which is going to trigger the trap which will kill the champion of the arena, and right at this moment players have to work together in order to survive, because if either one of them gets killed by the champion, then both the players are going to lose the match. So it's important to work as a team. That's the idea behind the game, and once the basic movement of the player was ready, I started adding platforms to the level to test the player movement and make sure that the gameplay feels right and it's very important to make sure that the movement of player feels good in order to improve the game feel of your game. That is why it is very important to spend some time figuring out the correct values and size for the characters so that your game don't feel too heavy or too light, well, until and unless that is the concept of your game. Variation and randomness is one of the most important factors which makes anything look much more natural and real, and to achieve that we kept one horn of entrance broken and other one was still at its place. This is the deadly skull which is going to kill the champion of the arena. It is all covered in blood, which means it has previously killed the champions of the arena before. To make the rally system work, I firstly created a couple of empty game objects, and these are going to work as spawn points for the relic, and I'm going to cycle the position of relic between these points. I stored all the spawn points into an array and ran a code through which we are going to cycle between the position. And the triangle you saw was just a placeholder for the relic, and this is the original design of the relic. Now what my brother did to save time while adding color to the relic was he did not paint the individual frames from scratch every time, but instead painted the whole relic first and then used pieces of paint from it and masked it with other frames and made changes to the other frames to save time. Once the spawn system was working in place, I started adding visual elements in the level to make it look more appealing. It does seem like an easy task at first, but hell man, I was wrong. It took me a while to get the placement and proportion of the level right, and this is where the early concept of the games comes in very handy. While I was preparing the level, I used it as a guide to prepare the level, and it helped save a lot of time also. And I added code for the scores also, just in case we plan to change the game design of the game to a score based game later in the future, and it was working smoothly. Now this is the part of development where we spend quite a lot of time, because here we're testing the right numbers and values to get the jumping absolutely right and more fun to do, and we got some help from our friend. Now this is my favorite part of the video, because this is where I get to say the most cliche dialogue of history, but I have to say it. It's alive! Ooh, ha 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 ha. Okay, now with that out of the way, it is actually my favorite part, looking at characters come to life, and the most interesting one is the death animation, because the character goes push in the air after dying, and I think it adds some kind of fun flavor to the game. So all of these animations are hybrid of both frame by frame and puppet animation, because we were short on time already, which means some of frames are entirely redrawn and some of them are just moved or rotated to get the impression of movement. You are currently looking at projectile of bazooka, and there were few failed attempts before we finalized how it will look. After adding it to the game, this is what we came up with by the end of Game Jam. The game was nowhere near complete to what we thought it will look like, but it was definitely working and was playable by the end of Game Jam. We really liked the concept of the game, so we decided to further develop it and add all the elements that we thought of during the Game Jam.
Thank you for watching, guys, and I'm very sorry for the bad audio quality. I promise it is going to improve in the future videos. There is a lot more game development related content coming in the future, and also I'm working on a series right now which is going to help anyone who is looking to kickstart their game development journey, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. So if you don't want to miss it, do subscribe to the channel, as it is also going to help me create more awesome game development related content for you guys. And you can also connect with me on your favorite social platforms. The links are in the description below, and I see you next time.